just ahead.
So, all my friends came to help me. That's the big thing.
Thousands of people dead and tens of billions of dollars in damages. Extreme weather events hit us hard in 2022. A new report identifies just how destructive climate disasters were last year. Foods made from soybeans, are they good for us?
It's not going to give you strong bones. It's going to cut your gains at the gym.
We take an honest look at one of the most talked about meat and dairy alternatives, the truth about its nutrition and impact on the environment.
So as you can see, they've swollen up a lot.
But first,
it's all wrong.
Why?
Greta Thunberg goes viral in an online feud that's got everybody talking.
Because of a video he posted while arguing with Greta Thunberg on Twitter.
This is just 2 degrees on TRT World. I'm Regan Devine, welcome to the program. Climate activist Greta Thunberg was embroiled in a tweet battle initiated by a man named Andrew Tate, who seems to not believe the climate is in crisis. Exchanges between the two have been blowing up on social media for more than a week now. Tate says he's a success coach, but he's infamous for who he hangs with and what he said in the past. He's reportedly made disparaging remarks about women, and in some circles he's accused of being misogynistic. But here's where his feud with Greta started. He posted this on Twitter, starting with, "Hello Greta, I have 33 cars, blah, blah, blah." But here's where the tweet gets interesting. Tate continues, "This is just the start. Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions." And obviously trying to provoke Greta further, he followed up with this video.
It's all wrong.
Why?
I shouldn't be up here. You have stolen my dreams. Yet... You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? In my childhood, how dare you? All you can talk about is money.
So let me just go through my pockets. It's hard to find my cigars amongst all the money.
With your empty words, entire ecosystems are collapsing. How dare you?
Well, it took a day before Greta responded, and we can't show that tweet because of the language. But when she replied to Tate, the internet went abuzz. There were tweets supporting Greta, like this one from Jennifer, saying, "I had honestly never heard of Andrew Tate before, but now I know him as a failed troll who mistakes wealth for knowledge and is clearly very insecure." And some people backed Tate, like Jackson, who tweeted, "The Greta Thunberg response to Andrew Tate is the most bot-liked tweet I've ever seen in my life. No one likes that little depopulation twerp, so she is buying likes." What happened next is nothing short of ironic.
Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have been arrested. Andrew and his brother were both detained as part of a human trafficking investigation by the Romanian police. They were both held for 24 hours while police raided their home. Now, it is currently suspected that police found Andrew's location because of a video he posted while arguing with Greta Thunberg on Twitter. In the video, he could be seen with this pizza box, and Romanian police allegedly tracked Andrew's location because of the branding on the pizza box.
Well, Greta did not skip a beat after the news of the arrest. She tweeted, "This is what happens when you don't recycle your pizza boxes." Wow, well, what an adventure that was. Anyway, moving on with the program. A December 2022 report identifies 20 of the most destructive climate disasters of the year. Christian Aid, which is a religious organization that says it battles injustices and responds to humanitarian emergencies, breaks down the most costly climate events and says its findings are proof there's need for more urgent environment action and a mechanism to support poor countries. Well, Christian Aid says Hurricane Ian topped its list in terms of financial cost. The Category 4 storm killed more than 100 people in the U.S. state of Florida in late September. It caused $100 billion worth of damage and displaced 40,000 people. The biggest death toll was in Pakistan, with more than 1,700 people killed. During the monsoon season, 7 million were displaced. And according to the World Bank, floods caused an estimated $30 billion worth of damage. And heat waves and drought fueled massive fires across Europe and caused extensive transport disruption, with the total bill reaching an estimated $20 billion. Well, Third Generation Environmentalism, or E3G, is an independent climate change think tank whose goal is to translate politics, economics, and policies into environmental action. Its co-founder, Tom Burke, joins me from London. Mr. Burke, appreciate your time. I guess it's no real surprise that climate disasters are becoming more deadly, but the scale of the devastation on that we saw in this report is just mind-blowing, isn't it?
I think that's exactly right. And I think what we're seeing now is climate change is moving from being something you read about in the newspapers or see on television to something people are experiencing every day in their daily lives. And I think that really does underscore the urgency of dealing with the problem. What's important to remember about climate change is it's a progressive disease. The longer you take to do something about it, the worse the impacts on people's lives.
And of course, the findings also show that no corner of the globe is really spared when it comes to climate disasters. Let's look back at the past year, particularly in November and December. In November, we saw the COP27 summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. An agreement to establish a loss and damage fund was probably the biggest announcement of the conference. Just bring us up to speed on what that is and whether you think it's likely to do what it's meant to.
Well, at the moment, it's an idea. It's an idea that people have agreed to develop and take forward so that we can help those, particularly the poorer countries in the world, cope better with the inevitable damage from the climate change we're already experiencing. So the idea is to create, if you like, a fund that can act to almost like an insurance policy for those countries that are most exposed so that they get some assistance with it. Now, that's not charity, by the way. It's really important to understand that's not charity. That's a way of making sure those economies are able to continue to function and so provide markets for goods for the rest of the world that's so far being both causing most of the problem, but also being less directly impacted with it.
Do you agree with Barbados' this Prime Minister, who suggested that we use mechanisms from like the World Bank to fund this loss and damage fund?
I think that the international financial institutions, of which the World Bank is one, all of them need to get their act together better in order to expedite their ability to help countries adapt to the climate change we're already experiencing. So I think that's exactly right. There is going to be loss and damage caused by a changing climate. It will damage economies. The purpose of the international financial institutions is to help those economies develop. They can't do that if they aren't helped to deal with the damage and loss being caused by climate change. And the banks, the World Bank and the other international financial institutions have really been quite slow to adapt their mechanisms to the level of urgency that we're now seeing.
Why do you think that is?
Being caused by the climate.
Why do you think they've been so slow to adapt?
Well, I think partly because they are bureaucratic institutions, partly because they are dealing with public money and therefore they're under scrutiny all the time. They need to be sure that they can justify all of their expenditures. But if you don't get those expenditures from the public sector going forward, then it's much harder to get the private sector investments to flow into those countries. So it really do need to see how public and private sector banks financial institutions need to work together.
No arguments from you there. Well, weeks later, after the COP27, we saw the COP15 summit on biodiversity, planetary biodiversity. What level of success do you anticipate we'll have in mobilizing, I think it's $200 billion a year for environmental projects?
I think it's going to be difficult. I think we have seen how difficult it is to mobilize $100 billion a year on climate change, which is, in a sense, a much more a problem that expresses itself much more in everybody's daily lives. So I think nobody should be under any illusions about how difficult it's going to be to mobilize the $200 billion a year from the COP15 agreements. Nevertheless, the message we're getting from the climate problem is exactly repeated in the biodiversity problem. If you don't deal with it and you don't deal with the impacts we're having on biodiversity, then you will find this translates into very damaging impacts on people's lives. Not perhaps as dramatically as obviously as with climate change, but definitely as certainly. And the scale of those will be very vast, very hard to make up the damage once it's done.
All right, Thunberg from Third Generation Environmentalism, or E3G. Appreciate you taking time out of your holiday to speak with us.
Thank you. Happy to do so.
Well, as we continue observing Veganuary and why it matters to many people, exploring vegan versions of animal-based products is becoming more popular. Sarah takes a look at how one vegan chef in Paris has transformed a traditional French dish and whether it holds up to the original.
Foie gras, a French favorite, especially popular around the holidays.
It's true that we like foie gras a lot. In general, it's a must-have for our Christmas meals.
But the EU's second largest poultry producer is reeling from a bird flu epidemic, which has led to severe shortages of foie gras after around 20 million chickens, ducks, and turkeys had to be culled, according to the French Farm Ministry. And there's another issue. Despite being part of France's protected cultural and culinary heritage, foie gras, a type of pâté, has controversial origins. It means fat liver and is made of the ground fattened liver of ducks or geese, fattened by force-feeding them, a practice condemned by animal activists.
We're at a period where animal products are more and more frowned upon, and I'm referring to the way we make foie gras, which is not the best.
2 years ago, a French chef from raw vegan restaurant 42 Degrés in Paris came up with an alternative, a vegan version he calls faux gras, which will be on the menu through February.
We have to now be able to find alternatives and to maybe reduce our consumption, which is excessive consumption, over a short period. Yes, I think it's good.
But he also says the point is not to replicate foie gras exactly. It has the look of foie gras, and it's creamier and made with cashew nuts, sunflower, and coconut oil.
Let's go back to the basics of some spices and to trick the eye, if I may say so, because that's exactly what we're doing here. It's having fun with the illusion of eating something that isn't what it seems.
It may not be a replacement for the dubious duck delicacy. An industry poll found more than 70% of French consumers were not ready to switch.
Addicts of real animal foie gras will not necessarily find what they are looking for. But when you don't eat it, when you're vegan, when you're already used to eating faux gras, as we call it, for me, this is the best.
But with prices for the already expensive original set to rise, more might be willing to give it a try. Sarah Balter, Just 2 Degrees.
With us now to talk about what else is out there when it comes to plant-based replacements is Rowan Kawaji, co-owner of the Gaia store and cafe in Gaziantep, Turkey. Rowan, hi there, it's good seeing you. Firstly, out of the bucket, when and why did you choose to become a vegan? Because it must have been difficult here.
Thank you for having me. I've been vegan for the last 5 years. It's gonna be 6 soon. I think I went vegan firstly for health and climate reason. I became more and more conscious on the effects that we have for the environment around us and the health impact that animal products have on me. so I took the decision to become vegan, and more like reading the stories, whether seeing movies, reading books, and studies. I also became more empathetic with animals and the industrial part of how we act with animals, how the industry, how cruel the industry is, made me like stick to the decision more even.
And I suppose that's why you started the Gaia store and cafe in Gaziantep.
So basically, Gaziantep is famous for its meat and dairy products, and they have a great cuisine here, and they take a big pride of the cuisine they have here. But also, it's been a struggle living as a vegan living in Gaziantep, having no options available, nor in restaurants or markets. That's how the store started. We wanted to show that even though the culture is full of meat eaters and full of meat dishes, we still can have a space in the city for people who choose to have a different dietary option. Not saying that we should be the only one, but rather having a space that in the city for both meat eaters and those who have different dietary options.
You mentioned earlier that you were becoming more aware of the environmental cost of eating meat and dairy, and of course your health issues. Do you find more people sharing your story? What kind of clientele do you have in Gaziantep, which of course you said is a heavy meat consumer?
So the clients that we have maybe goes between those who are kind of forced or led by doctors to take a vegan diet options, and those who are vegan by choice. Doctors are becoming and dietitians are becoming more and more aware of the benefits that a vegan diet could have on the body, reducing heart diseases, diabetes, blood pressure, and other allergies that exist, like such as lactose intolerance or gluten intolerance, or even you could have meat allergies that are rare to know, like not famous or not so known, but you could have those also. So we have for people of the community that are taking these options as a doctor recommended, and those who are vegan but move to Gaziantep later and are finding the space really helpful. Also, Gaziantep has a lot of foreigner like expats living here, and those are also some of them were vegan in their country of origins, and then they moved here for work. So they find the space really helpful for them.
All right, Rowan, let's zoom in on the topic of soy a minute. It's a popular alternative to meat, fish, and dairy, but there's a lot of conflicting information about it. Take a listen to this.
Do you drink soy milk or use any soy products?
No, not really.
Why not?
I don't know, I heard of it, of course, but I usually go for non-fat or skimmed milk.
No man should drink soy. It should not be in your body as a male, all right? It's gonna make you weaker.
I really don't know too much about soy as a milk alternative, but some people like it. If they've got a lactose intolerance, then maybe it's good for them.
You know, everyone knows, okay? No one wants to be a soy guy, all right? It's part of the, I think they're trying to market it as an alternative, but it's not going to give you strong bones. It's going to cut your gains in the gym.
Everyone knows it's an alternative to like cow's milk, right? But I think in Turkey it's not really that widespread because we're more in Turkey, more used to Turkish coffee, not espresso per se, and you don't really have milk or alternatives with Turkish coffee.
I think like it's been an increasing demand for that because that's what I hear, but because I think it's good for, I don't know, it's a great alternative for vegetarian people as far as I know, but I don't know much about the products and soy milk, to be honest.
So Ron, as we heard, quite a few different views on soy, but mostly people are not quite sure what to think about it. What have you heard? Let's start with the good things about soy. What have you heard?
Soy is used largely by vegans, not just as milk, but also in tofu and as a meat alternative. So basically, we are dependent on soya a lot. Good thing that I heard that for the health that it's known to cure. I don't want to say cure, but rather it helps with heart diseases and cancer, like cancer recovery. Let's say. I know a doctor would explain better in the terminology, like medical terminology.
Of course.
But I would say, as a meat alternative, it's really a great protein source, since you can really have challenges, or rather obstacles, when it comes to protein intake when you are vegan. So soy provide this a large amount of protein for a vegan person, let's say.
And I have to point out that you're not a nutritionist, just a vegan, but of course you've had extensive research in veganism. But does it concern you, the bad things we keep hearing about soy? For example, that it causes cancer both in men and women?
Frankly speaking, it doesn't concern me, taking into consideration that I don't use soy, or I don't even advise to use soy in large amounts, but rather in a moderate ways. And I believe, like this, it's a personal belief that once you use something in moderation, you could kind of stay away from the harmful sides. But also, studies have been saying, like many studies or reviews of studies have been showing that those studies that showed bad effects on human health are rather conducted on animals than human. So basically, there is some issues in the credibility of those studies that shows soy as a harmful a product for a legume for the human body.
We'll be looking at this topic quite a bit during the month of January, but really appreciate getting your perspective. That's Rawan Karaji in Gaziantep, Turkey. Thank you once more. Right, so the civil war in Syria has had a disastrous impact on people in the northwest of the country, but it's not only the people who are suffering. The natural environment has been devastated by wildfires, logging and drought. Noor Kormush explains.
The Syrian civil war has taken a terrible humanitarian and economic toll, and it's also devastated the country's natural resources. According to Global Forest Watch, a US-based monitor, Syria has lost more than 26,000 hectares of forest cover since 2001, around a quarter of its total tree cover. Local officials say there are several factors to play.
Forests are one of Syria's most valuable natural resources, with more than 350 species scattered across the country. But the war has devastated forests and green spaces, as wildfires are triggered by bombardment and some areas cleared to make way for displaced people.
In the northwest, a combination of drought, poor land management, and logging mean almost 60% of the farming land is at risk of desertification.
Climate change has damaged the farming process and affected the level and quality of production. We have been facing these hardships since the beginning of the war due to the drought, which has affected our rain-fed crops. And the increased fuel prices mean irrigation is very expensive.
In addition to the worsening drought, the Assad regime is controlling and limiting the flow of vital rivers in the area. It's also preventing the delivery of essential materials, including fuels. And according to officials, the climate crisis has been and continues to be one of the major factors in the continuation of the Syrian conflict.
Since the beginning of the war, the Assad regime has restricted the delivery of fuel to areas outside its control. And to keep the power on, locals have created primitive oil refineries, but they are hard on the environment, causing water contamination, air pollution, and the destruction of the surrounding ecosystem. Workers at the refineries risk their lives, facing continuous exposure to dangerous chemical and toxic fumes.
This area was beautiful and full of forests and greenery, which helped to keep the temperature cool. These green spaces were destroyed during the war to build the oil refineries, and over time, all remaining green spaces were destroyed. We are constantly exposed to poisonous fumes and potential explosions. These refineries not only kill plants and animals, but are also slowly killing us.
As conflict and climate conspire against them, the people of northwest Syria have no choice but to continue their struggle for survival. Nokormush TRT World, Idlib, Syria.
Earlier this week, we analysed whether the weather they've been seeing in the US, particularly during the Christmas holidays, is climate crisis related. We leave you with images of the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. Pictures may look beautiful now, but things were not that serene days earlier. Until next time, bye.